Hey everyone, this is Dan, and in today's TouchDesigner tutorial, I'm going to talk about constant chops, and more specifically, why you should not be using them as de facto parameters, and why you should be using custom parameters instead. So this is an issue close to my heart, because I see even legendary tutorial makers make this mistake and teach even beginners this wrong way of using constant chops as parameters in networks. And yeah, I will talk about why it's not a good idea and what we should be using instead. As I said before, custom parameters, and why my free toolkit slash toolbar makes it much easier to deal with custom parameters, and it helps you stay in the flow of creation and keep you organized in your network. So at first, I want to promote my Patreon. There's a lot of things there. There's like 132 posts going back to 2022 February. Lots of tips and tricks and tools that still apply today. So feel free to browse around and let me know if there's anything you're interested in. And the other thing I want to mention is the Death Fest in New York City, organized by Taryn Blankensmith and Lyle Hintz, aka Simulate. And this is a TouchDesigner workshop, roundtable, festival, installations, performances, all that. And I'm going to be holding a workshop together with Simulate on the more depths of tool building and custom components, because this is a topic that can go much, much further than what I cover in this video. First, let's talk about the problem at hand. So let's say you make a beautiful patch, a very complex patch, or a simple patch, doesn't matter. And you want to put some things as parameters. So for example, if you had multiple textures, I don't know, then you would want to change the resolution together, and you would maybe then create a constant chop and start adding parameters onto there. So yeah, this is not the best idea, and there's many reasons. First reason, in the constant chop you can only store numbers, and there's many other parameter types in TouchDesigner. For example, texts, all the reference types to other operators, colors, so many things that are not just simple numbers, but can represent other things. And the other problem is that this slider that the constant chop has can only go from 0 to 1. And that's also not so useful if you're playing around with different values. 0 to 1 might not be your desired range for this value. And you would have to resort to using the middle mouse ladder. So that's also another reason, as well as if I wanted to reset this parameter to something other than 0, I'm not able to do that in the constant chop. So that's, I think, are the 3 reasons why we shouldn't be using the constant chop for parameters. And then let's say that we have a script where we want to change this amplitude. So I would go copy constant1.bar dot, and now we need to check this is const to value. So const to value, and then we can set it to, I don't know, to 666. And then if I run it, then it happens. Cool. But imagine you have a bigger script, imagine that this is somewhere else, etc. This doesn't tell us much about the parameter that we're setting. We would have to check, oh, I'm setting const to value somewhere at constant 1, I need to go there, it's the amplitude. So that's not really helpful. So I think that was the 5th reason already. And to go further, we have taken here the chop reference as a parameter, and that means I cannot use it as a bind. I cannot bind to the chop value here normally. And I will talk about binding in a second with custom parameters. Or actually, right now I can show you, of course, you could take, instead of the chop channel of either the constant or the null one, you could take this const to value parameter and then bind that, and with binding, we would be able to then at least set this parameter from the reference itself, let's say, from the bind itself. So there's a two-way communication here, which is in some cases, I would say in many cases, it's desirable, even though it costs a little bit more CPU, but it's okay. So yeah, you could do this with a binding to the parameter, but then again, you have something here that's not really descriptive. So yeah, you're even better off just using the reference, but yeah, then you cannot bind. So I think that was the sixth reason. And then one more reason, which I just thought about, is you can reorder these parameters, these sequence parameters. And you might want to do that because, you know, why the heck not? So if I were to drag this and drop this here, and then move the block to reorder these, suddenly, if I run this script again, that's not good. That's really not good, because const to value is now res y instead of the amp that it was before. So we lost kind of the reference there to the correct parameter. So I think that should be enough reasons why you shouldn't be using the constant chop. And of course, I'm going to get to what you should be using instead, but let's quickly see when you should be using a constant chop. Constant chop should be something that you really don't change ever and don't want to change. For example, in many cases, you want to change the resolution reference and other parameters that you define here, be it instance count or instance resolution or many things that you see in tutorials. Instead, you want to use constant chops. For example, when I have this this LFO driving the position of this circle, and I want to have a default state, and I want to cross into that default state, then it's good to have a constant here, and I can change, of course, then if I want to default it to some other value. But using it for default values, also if you were to merge, for example, also if you're instancing on a tx axis, but you want to give a default tz axis or value, then you can also use a constant there and just name it tz or something like that. So using it as kind of like a default chop value that you either cross into or merge or whatever. So those are good, but when used as a parameter and when building references to parameters, constant chop is a big no from me. And let's see what it is that we should be using. As I mentioned before, we should be using custom parameters, which are a built-in feature in TouchDesigner, and they are available for base comps. And a base comp is, for example, we can select this noise, right-click somewhere, and collapse selected. Now this is in a base comp. And in general, working with base comps and encapsulating parts of your network into base comps, some functionalities into base comps, and then promoting custom parameters is the essence of TouchDesigner, at least in my opinion. That's how you build more complex systems. That's how you can keep control of your more complex systems and such. So it's very important to work with custom parameters and base comps. So a base comp can have a custom parameter. How can we do that? For those who have never seen custom parameters or want to know more, let's first open the parent parameters. If you right-click somewhere and look for open parent parameters, we get it. And then let's open also the customized parent component. This is many clicks and hard to find in these menus. So if you get my free TouchDesigner toolbar /toolkit, then there's this diamond button, is what I call it. It's the custom par tools. And if I left click on it, it opens the parent parameters. If I right click on it, it opens the component editor. And this is also available per pane. So if I were to I don't know, split this pane and like I'm somewhere else, this will open this pane's parent customization as such parameter. So that's already much better than the default way. So let's have this open now and then see what we can do with custom parameters, or why we should be using them and why they are better than constant chops. So to promote a parameter as a custom parameter, we can drag and drop it onto the component editor window. And when we do that, we are met with three options. And it's bind new parameter as master, as reference, or set reference expression on source. I'm gonna first use the set reference expression on source. So that means that now we have created this new custom parameter here, and it's automatically referenced from where we dragged. So that's already much better than what we had before, because this has a nice name, this has a nice parameter reference, and it has all the features that custom parameters have. So let's see what we have. Of course, we can change the name, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm interested in is the range. For example, I can make this range to 0.5 only if I wanted to. That's great. I can set the default value of whatever. Right now it's set to 0.5. Let's set it to 0.25. And now when I reset this parameter, this custom parameter here, it will reset to 0.25. Okay, let's do quickly also the resolution of this. I'm gonna drag and drop this parameter group onto here, and then also set reference expression on source. I'm gonna drag this up, and nice 256 by 256 as a default, that's fine. We don't really care about the range, minimum, and the maximum for non-slider parameters, let's say, because here it kind of matters. Here, minimum and maximum doesn't matter, except the clamping actually matters. I mean, it can matter on any number parameter, but for a resolution parameter, it's actually quite handy to clamp the maximum resolution, because I can very easily type 2 extra zeros here, and in many cases that would kill the project file, and if you didn't save, then bad luck. But in any case, you can just use clamping on the parameter. So if I clamp this to, I don't know, 3000, let's say, it means that I can type whatever here that's below 3000. If I type something that's above 3000, it will jump to 3000 instead. So this can be very useful for resolution type parameters, as I said, and in other cases also, if you want to limit the value of a parameter very easily. Of course, I have to mention, if you create a parameter manually, which you do many times also, of course, you can also get it as a chop value with the parameter chop. And here you can filter down to just offset. Maybe you can just give it a filter or whatever, a lag, and then use that. Obviously, we can also do this. Also, we can, as well as getting it as a dot with a parameter dot, and we can also parameter execute and so on. So parameters have a lot of other utility built into TouchDesigner. Yeah, let's talk about bindings. So let's now drag and drop this offset onto here, and let's now use one of the bind options. Let's bind new parameter as master. So if I do that, it's now, instead of this tealish bluish, it's now purple, and it means that this is a bound parameter, which means that there's two-way communication now. So I can change this offset either where it is referenced, here at the noise, or I can change it at the custom parameter level. Before, with the amplitude that we used as a reference, I can only change it at the custom parameter level. Let's have it actually like this, maybe. And not here, because if I change it here, it breaks the reference. So binds are useful for this reason. Side note, they cost a little bit more CPU, but usually you don't have to worry about that too much. As a side note, if you're using a preset system, for example, then it can be pretty heavy. For example, if you have a visual instrument, is what I call a base comp that has a lot of custom parameters that are very nicely mapped out and such. And you are using a preset system on that, and you are using a lot of parameter bindings, then when you are switching between presets and all of those binds get dragged around by the preset manager, then it can get heavy. So then you would want to run a script that turns all your binds into references, which I think you might find on my Patreon. Yeah, that was the end of the side note. So binds. Yeah, binds are awesome. I use them a lot. And that's also why now I'm going to talk about this button up here more. When I drag any parameter onto this button, it will already bind it to the parent's custom parameters. So it will already promote and bind. So I can just, while I'm working on something and I like some parameter in my visual, I will just drag and drop it there, and now it's there. And next time I open up the project, or like I want to play around with the project or the visual, I can just touch all the custom parameters that I found to be useful. You can also promote as a reference with this button. If I drag and drop and hold Shift, then it promotes as a reference. Okay, we have one more thing to cover here, I guess, and it's when I drag and drop and bind new parameter as reference. What is the difference there? The difference is that now we have the reference on the custom parameter level and not on the operator level, let's say, or the parameter level. And why that's not so good is, or why you might not want to do that for custom parameters, is, for example, now I can set an expression here on the parameter. Again, just a reminder, this is a bind master, which you can also, by the way, see with this little notch, or like this little corner, which shows as purple. So this is a bind master, and I can add an expression to this parameter. So I'm just gonna do f_seconds divided by, or like modulo 1, just to have something going. Of course, I can do this also for references. That's also fine. That will not cause any problems. But obviously, I cannot do this here because this is a bind reference, so it's already taken. So that's kind of the main difference, I would say, between bind masters and references. There is only one master, while there can be many references. Okay, so I talked about default values, range min-max, clamp min-max. Maybe as a side note, you can also set a default value not as a constant value, but rather as an expression or a bind even. So I could here say appstime.seconds modulo 0.5, whatever. And then next time I reset, sorry, I need to have the custom parameters open. And the next time I reset this parameter, it will have that expression as a default. Okay. Also, I talked about binds. I showed you this diamond thing where you can just very easily drag and drop parameters there of any type. You can also drag and drop parameter groups and such. So that's something I use all the time, like really all the time. And that's why I built it. So there's only one more thing that I would like to mention here, and it's the use of parent shortcuts. Parent shortcuts are found in a base comps or like any comps command tab under parent shortcut. And here I can name this whatever. I can name this noise, for example. And next time I promote any parameter to here, let's see what happens. This now has parent.noise.par.seed. So this is a little bit longer than parent brackets.par.whatever, but way, way better. And the reason that this is better is because this will always reference the parent no matter where you are inside that comp. So if I were to, I don't know, just imagine a scenario where you build something, you mapped out some parameters as references and such, and suddenly you're like, oh, but I actually want to collapse this this further down because maybe suddenly this should be encapsulated into a unit of its own as a base comp. So let me collapse this noise further down. And by the way, if you are using a new, probably now still unreleased version of my toolkit, Control W will already create a base comp for you and also go in. So I just collapse this now to base comp, and look, all my references are broken now because we were using parent bracket. And of course you can go ahead and update each of them as parent 2 so that they go up one more level to this base. But yeah, good luck doing that for all of them. Instead, if we were using the parent shortcut as parent.noise, this is not broken because this is always pointing to this parent base one, which we called noise as a parent shortcut. And yeah, now it's not broken. I can also open this up and change the seed here. We have a lot of things, but you see what I'm doing here. And all these other ones are broken. And yeah, now I would have to update all of them. By the way, there's also a custom function built into this diamond button. If I alt click on it, it will clear all those erroneous expressions and references. And I think in the future, I might also just automatically replace all the parent brackets with the closest parent shortcut. Let me know if that's something that would be useful. I think it might be, because now I have to go back to this parent and then one by one again bind these or reference them. But the good thing is, if you have a parent shortcut set, TouchDesigner will automatically use the parent shortcut when it can, so that's good. And that's why parent shortcuts should be used a lot. I also made it easier to define parent shortcuts, so if you Control-Shift-Click on this, this will pop up at parent shortcut, and I can just call this new noise or whatever. And then, yeah, now I could use this parent shortcut, and let's promote maybe here, and then this is only available here, but it's already using the parent.newNoise. And also, in many cases, you might kind of forget what the parent shortcut you set is. So for that, I also built in my toolkit a functionality where if you hover over in this title bar or whatever you want to call this, a parent, it will tell you if it has a parent shortcut and what the name is. So for example, the /project one that's in every TouchDesigner default startup file, let's say. So in a lot of cases, I would actually use parent.project.width and parent.project.height and such. So use parent shortcuts also, please. Okay, I think I said this is the last thing many times in this video already, but I think this is really the last thing before the outro. If you would still like to use constant chops in whatever way, on my Patreon you will find this constant base. And what this constant base is, it's very similar to the constant chop, except it can be of any type. It doesn't have to be just a number. For example, I can have a constant that's of string type. So this is now suddenly kind of like a table. And I can name the channels whatever I want, similar to the constant chop. But again, this can be of any type. So this can be even menus or yeah, whatever, you know? And that's the point. So why is that useful for us? So let's go back to our original like problem. Let's say that we have this noise and we use the constant chop. Instead of using, for example, this chop reference for the amplitude here, which would, you know, it would work right now. That's fine. Or instead of using the parameter reference to this sequence parameter, similar to what we had before with the constant chop, this is also fine. Still, we have this same problem that we had before. So instead, what you can do with this one is you can reference this constant and then dot and then the channel name capitalized. So I can say amp here with capital letters, and that will work also. Let me have this on the side. So now if I change this, it also changes there just by using a reference like such. And what's also cool here is I can also use it as a bind. So I can bind to this attribute, is what it is in the end. I can bind there, and it's a two-way bind as before. So that is amazing. Because then also, if I wanted to set this from a script, constant1 dot amp equals something. If I run this, it also works here. And then I can also reorder this or do whatever I want. So this is much more descriptive and easy to use. Another example using this constant base with a text type. So now I have it set to string. And here I have 3 text tops just to show it. And here I am referencing op constant2.title, which is the channel name here. Here I'm referencing constant2.subtitle, and here constant2.text. And one final extra feature to this constant base is, let's say that I wanted to modify the amp here. For some reason, I want to multiply this, or I want to put a filter to it. That's even better. I want to put a filter to this parameter. So I will just filter right now. I would just filter the amp here, but I would like to use this attribute system. I can type constant1.amp underscore out, and that will always reference the actual output. So now we have a nice filter on it without modifying anything significant. So again, it's just the channel name with the first letter capitalized and then underscore out, and that grabs the output. Okay, and with that, I think I ranted enough about custom parameters and why you should be using them over constant chops and best practices, but there's a lot more to know about this topic. So you can follow me on Patreon for more insights into TouchDesigner and lots of tools and pretty visuals also sometimes. So there's a lot there. And also, if you're in New York, 2025, April 17 and 18, then you can check out our workshop with .simulate, where we go into much more detail about building custom components, because this is a vast topic that entails a lot. And it's very useful to build custom components and build them to the best of your abilities, because it will get you much farther in the long run if you learn this skill in TouchDesigner and use it as muscle memory almost. So yeah, hope to see you around and hope you found this useful. Let me know in the comments, etc. Ciao.